Hi, this is Vincent with SCAiowa and another introductory video for the Society for Creative Anachronism. The SCA is a worldwide historic recreation organization dedicated to recreating all the best aspects of the Middle Ages. Anything that was made, used, consumed before 1600, we have friends who enjoy learning about it, exploring it, trying it, teaching others about it. It's a way for you to explore history hands-on. And one of the ways for you to dive in and experience history that we do is in the Marshal activities, the combat recreation that is done at events basically on a weekly basis within our society. Obviously, we're known for these activities because they're loud, they're showy, they're exciting, but they do represent an activity that's participated in by less than half of our participants. Most of the people when these people are out fighting out on the battlefield, most of the people at the event are actually doing other activities. But it still ends up being the activities that we do at events or at local meetings that replicate the combat skills of the past. Some of these happen much more frequently than others. Some of them are very rarely done for various reasons. And some people participate in only one, others will participate in more than one of these. But let's talk about a few of these different martial activities. Now, the list that I'm going to go through here is for the Kingdom of Calontir, representing Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, and a little bit of Arkansas. If you're from a different region of the country, then you might have a slightly different list than this, and you should check with your kingdom to find out the martial activities available to you. One of the martial activities that we see, but not very often, are equestrian activities. Obviously, if you know anything about owning horses, you know there's quite a bit of expense involved. And so there's only so many people that can afford to participate in this particular bit of combat recreation. There are many different activities within the equestrian activity umbrella, if you'd like, including mounted combat, mounted archery, and challenge courses where the horse and rider are asked to do a variety of different challenging activities. And yes, we do a form of the jousting or tilting that you might have seen at the Ren fairs, but ours tends to be a little bit safer for both the horse and rider. One of the activities that's much more commonly seen are the target archery activities. Target archery is where we're shooting with a blunt arrow tip at targets and using a variety of different challenging activities to stretch the skills and abilities of our archers. We don't have compound bows, but we do have a variety of different wooden or takedown bows or even fiberglass bows and crossbows at these events. They generally allow only wooden arrows, and again, there are restrictions on the types of tips that you have on the arrows. But there are many different kinds of shoots that they do at these events, from a range of different distances and challenging targets to aim at. Another one of the very common activities that you will see are the thrown weapons activities. Obviously here we're talking about axes, knives, and spears. And it's easy to pick these up and try out at events. A lot of the times when it comes to not only target archery but thrown weapons, there are many more event sites that allow us to do these activities at them. So you'll find they're a little more readily available. There's even a lot of loaner gear available for thrown weapons. And if you see a thrown weapons range, you can go up and talk to them and see if you can participate. You do probably need to have some closed-toed shoes in order to participate. That's one of the safety rules they follow because, you know, dropping an axe on your toe, it's not fun. Combat archery is a slightly different take on these different ranged combat techniques, where they're using a large blunt tip arrow or bolt to shoot at other combatants. They shoot at each other. But to do this, we have to follow some safety rules. One thing is that there's armor required. You can only shoot at other armored people during the rattan combat fights. And there are specially modified bows, crossbows, bolts, and arrows that they use to make sure that people don't get injured from these. Obviously, there is some risk involved in some of the things we do, and we don't want people to get hurt. Since there's so many more challenges involved with this, this is a less frequently seen activity at events. Similarly, siege weapons aren't as common as some of the other martial activities. Siege weapons will commonly use large padded missiles to shoot at people. Again, since this is challenging to pull off safely, this is going to be done relatively infrequently. But it can be a pretty impressive sight to see. Occasionally we do have friends who bring along something like a trebuchet just to throw a watermelon into a field for the fun of it, but that's a slightly different activity, and it's just one of those fun things you do. Youth combat obviously is going to be one of the things that the kids are excited about participating in. It's open for people younger than 16 and has certain requirements for padded weapons as well as armor. And we try to set up a safe environment for the kids to participate in different tournaments or melee fights so that they can get in on the excitement as well. Obviously, the steel combat is one of the big draws. This is going to be a style of combat recreation that we commonly call cut and thrust in Calontir, using blunt steel weapons and armor. So it's not an unarmored combat. The armor usually takes the form of clothing that's thick enough to prevent a broken blade from piercing someone. So this is an armored combat. Generally, with the steel combat, the armor being clothing, layers of cloth, is relatively inexpensive in order to acquire, but the weapons tend to be a little more expensive. We're going to see that this is the exact opposite as the rattan combat. Now, of course, the rattan combat is the big one, the one we've known about, the one that started the SCA back at that original tournament in 1966. For the rattan combat, we're approximating these medieval tournaments where they used blunt weapons or clubs to fight each other, and we use rattan, a type of grass, to simulate a variety of different weapons, from swords to spears to axes. They use this rattan in order to replicate the thrill, but still keep things as safe as possible. Now, again, like I said, with the rattan combat, the cost of the weapon is pretty low, but the cost of the armor required is going to be a little bit higher. So it's the exact opposite of the steel combat. Now, there is another style of martial activity, the other one. I haven't actually seen this one. It was relatively new, approved just a couple years ago, and isn't frequently done in our kingdom as far as I know. I know that it involves much heavier armor and heavier blunt steel weapons. It's a little more dangerous, so there are fewer people that are participating in it. But it is out there as an option. You'd have to talk to the marshals in order to find out more information about this. Now, talking to the marshals is one of those first steps you'll want to follow, because obviously you want to get participating in this. It's not enough just to sit on the sideline and watch these things happen. We want to get you in armor and participating in these activities. So how do you do this? One of the best things you can do is go to your local group and check out their activities. Not all groups have martial activities at them, or some of them only have some of the different martial activities happening at any time. But it's a good way to figure out who you can talk to get a little more information, and you can talk to your local fighter marshal, who's going to be a key source of information for you. They're also going to be the person who's in charge of the loaner gear, because quite often groups have loaner weapons and loaner armor to help people get started. You can also talk to other local participants and start getting feedback from them, because there's a lot of information that you may want to gather before you start dropping down some money to buy different things. You can look for this information online as well. If you go to www.calontir.org, our kingdom website, or you can try and find things on the society website at www.sca.org, you're looking for a Marshal's Handbook. This is going to spell out the specific rules tied to the style of combat recreation done within the SCA. One of the key things I can say is try before you buy. there's probably loaner gear available. There's probably things you can borrow and try on to see if you enjoy this hobby before you start buying all of the things that go along with it. It can save you from having buyer's regret later on. Also, talk to people at events. If you go to an event where there are the list field, the fighting area set up, they're going to want to talk to you just as much as you want to talk to them. So when there's an opportunity, you can go up and say, "Excuse me, I would like to know about your helmet. Pardon me, can you tell me about your gauntlets? What do you like about these?" And you can get a lot of feedback from people, and they'll probably even let you try things on or see what you like or what you don't like about the weapons and armor that they have with them. This is a great learning opportunity about the options before you start investing in any of these hobbies. Same thing can be said for archery or equestrian or youth combat, any of these different martial activities, in fact, any activity within the Society for Creative Anachronism. If you're polite and you go up and ask people for information about what they're participating in, what they're working with, you can probably get a whole lot of information very quickly. And that way you can find out if these activities are going to line up and meet your needs as far as your part of the hobby. And you can find your adventure as you explore the Society for Creative Anachronism.